You're joking, aren't you? It's the Teesside chef. Good old Teesside Fadgies here, and it's the easiest, triangularest bread you've never heard of. The smell of freshly baked fudgies is one of my fondest childhood memories, and it certainly helped take my mind off the fact that Margaret Thatcher stole my milk. But even though Maggie Thatcher, milk snatcher, decimated the north of England, she couldn't touch our fudgies, and I'm keeping the tradition going with 500 grams of white bread flour, and I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of salt to that, and a teaspoon of sugar, and 1 sachet of dried yeast, and that's about 7 grams. And as you can see, I'm giving it a good stir up to prevent the salt potentially killing the yeast like Thatcher killed my childhood calcium levels. And now I'm going to add 300 millilitres of lukewarm water in there, and 50 grams of melted lard, and you do need to use lard here to make these authentic. And I tell you what, you lot, shut up a minute for 5 minutes while I give this a good stir before putting it in my machine. And you could do this dough by hand, of course. The mix isn't too wet, but I like to start it off in my machine because I'm a bit work shy. And I love making fudgies because it always brings back happy memories of going to the local bakery with me mum to pick up these wonderful triangular bread buns. And I suppose it was an artisanal bakery, really, before artisanal baking was hijacked by middle-class public school boys with beards and no socks. But anyway, in the Tory utopia we've all enjoyed in Britain for decades, that local bakery was replaced by a payday lending company, and we're all better off for it, I tell you. And as you can see, I've got my dough out now and I'm giving it a good knead, but I'll try not to get too political here. After all, I'm not totally against the Conservatives. I mean, I believe in economic democracy, but I'd also like to siphon off hundreds of millions of pounds of somebody else's money and give it to me mates. I'm a firm believer in honesty and integrity, but I also like to compulsively lie if it means that I'll get what I want. So it's a balance, you know, like, hey, politics doesn't have to divide us. But I'll have to divide this dough soon enough, because this is a one-proof bread. So now I've kneaded it well, and the dough springs back quickly when I've pressed my finger into it. We can go ahead and cut out the signature triangular shape of these fudgies. And first we have to flatten the dough into a rectangular shape that's maybe 30 centimetres by around 10 centimetres, and you can do this by hand, by gradually flattening and stretching it out, remembering to fold under every time as you go. And if you've got anything lying around that'll help you shape this dough, you can use that too. I've got a floured pan here to help me, and this is about the right size and works perfectly for this amount of dough. But whether you're doing it by hand or you're dead clever like me, make sure it's nice and flat on top if you can, and take a bit of time to get this right. And my dough is about 2 to 3 centimetres thick here. And when we have our rectangle shape, we can cut out 4 pieces first and measure this carefully if you want to ensure that you get these roughly the same size, these fudgies. And you want to cut these with the sharpest tool you have available to avoid pushing down and misshaping the thin end of the wedge. And speaking of thin edges of wedges, I would hazard that an independent inquiry would prove that the corruption and cronyism that we already know about in Boris Johnson's junta is just the thin end of a very large wedge. But the burden of proof is on us now, because we have to prove these fudgies for around an hour. So let's get them on a sheet first and give them a little bit of a kiss and a cuddle here to make sure that they keep their nice triangular shape. And of course we have to cover them with something, and I'm brushing some cling film here with some oil. And we want to make sure that these fudgies are well covered so no air can get to them. So once I've got that cling film on the top there, I just like to go around the edges and push it down onto the sheet. Make it as airtight as possible. And then we want to leave these now for about an hour to prove. And you can see they've puffed up a good bit now. So let's get this cling film off these now. And you want to have your oven preheated at this point, 220 degrees fan setting. But before these go in the oven, you can give them a traditional, but also optional, dusting of flour. And then they're ready to go in, and these will need about 20 minutes. And they should come out lovely and golden brown like this. And you'll know they're done, because when you give them a tap on the bottom with your finger, they'll sound just the same as if you were tapping bonkers Boris's noggin with your finger, nice and hollow and vacuous. Smother them with a damp tea towel to make sure that they're nice and soft. And these Teesside treats are best consumed fresh, just like Prime Minister's lies. But if you can't neck them straight away, put them in your freezer until you do want them. The fudgies, I mean, not the Prime Minister's lies. And you can enjoy these no matter where you are on the political spectrum. So if you're trying to decide what bread to make for your next baking project, vote for Teesside Fadgies and they'll see you through. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ta-ra.